After a week that tested our spirits, I'm turning to the hummingbird, a symbol of resilience, grace, and the quiet strength to keep going. Today's painting is more than just a bird. It's a reminder to stay light, find joy in the little things, and keep our hearts soft even when life is hard. Hi everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting a hummingbird, and I have here my number 7 round Draw brush, my tester for what we're going to create. It won't be exactly like this, obviously, because this is just a kind of preliminary sketch, as I always say. And I'm going to use the Meeden paints that I used the other day in the last video we did, because I haven't used them for quite a while, and they've got a special offer coming up, so I want to show you that they're actually really good. All their products are. And they're expanding, and I'll give you more information about that perhaps in the next video. This is their watercolor paint set, 24 tubes. So if you like to paint with tubes, which I do, I have to admit, this is a very economical way of doing it. And I'm not doing a hard sell, I'm just letting people know that these are available for, I think they're about $18.95 or something like that, dollars. They're shipped from America to within America, so to speak, and around the world as well. So that's good to know. And they're good colors in the sense that they are the colors that you need in order to be able to mix anything. For example, I shall just give you a quick example of how good they are. If you want a turquoise, turquoise is a nice color, and you don't necessarily have that in your set. Most sets actually don't have turquoise in when you buy them, especially if you've only got a small set. But here we have cobalt blue and sap green. And when you mix those two together, you can get various shades of turquoise, either more bluish or more greenish. And you can add also a little bit of yellow too if you want to just sharpen it up a little bit. So you can get multiple different shades of green by doing something like that. You don't have to have 653 different paints, all from Daniel Smith, which would break the bank. So, you know, this works really well. So if you are just a starter and you want to go from the sorts of paints that you find in the dollar store up a step, then Meeden are pretty much rock solid. You can't fail with Meeden. I use their paper all the time as well. And this is a new pad of cold press paper. Size is 10 by 7. It's a good size for just doing your practice work, especially. Sorry about the reflection. It's still got its plastic coat on. You know, this is 100% cotton paper, and it has to be said that you can't do better than to paint on cotton paper. Obviously, arches and things like that are much more expensive, and you don't necessarily want to practice on that, but this is a good compromise. So I'm going to actually draw the hummingbird today, and I've got my eraser here. I don't work for Meeden, by the way. Somebody said the other day that I was spending all my time selling, and I'm not really. I'm just letting people know, because a lot of beginners out there, there are a lot of beginners out there, and you don't necessarily know about these things, and how else would you find out? And so that's what I do, and I'm going to carry on doing it, whatever anyone says. So I'm going to draw with you now a hummingbird. I don't know what kind of hummingbird this is. In my country where I live, and even when I'm on holiday in Egypt, we don't have hummingbirds. We have all sorts of things like, what was it that we saw? Bee eaters, European bee eaters in Egypt. Absolutely gorgeous birds. They're brilliantly coloured, and they soar in the air like kites. They just soar on the thermals and on the wind and so on, and they're very fun to watch. And they apparently can eat, I think it said, what I read about them was that they can eat 100, or they eat 100 bees a day, and goodness only knows where they find them. I think his head's a bit too big. I'm going to make his head a little bit smaller. Don't hesitate to alter your your hummingbird's shape. We're going to give him an eye here. I will put a sketch of this up on our website for you to download. You probably know all about our system whereby you get an insider studio pass for a few dollars, and that entitles you to many downloads. And if you don't do that, then they are not expensive either. So I'm just putting in the wing now, and you can do this as loosely or as detailed as you want, obviously. And this one's going to be a kind of compromistic sort of bird. I'm only going to show one wing because two wings gets complicated. And we'll come down here. Now, you know all about the symbolism of the hummingbird, I expect. They're very commonly used to symbolize various things such as joy and perseverance and healing and renewal, that kind of thing. And the reason I chose to do this today was, actually it came about partly because a good friend of mine from California, Denise, who I chat with from time to time on the actual phone, and she suggested that we should do some of the old videos that we've done, and it's a good idea. And I thought hummingbird would be nice, and I thought I must have done hummingbirds, but when I looked back, I found that I hadn't done many, and I didn't really want to show the same video again anyway, so I thought I'll do a hummingbird today. So there's the shape of the hummingbird. I think his tail wants to be a little bit longer, having put it there, so I'll just extend those feathers down the bottom there a little bit, and I'll rub out the ones that I don't need anymore. If I could find it, I would use my what is it called? Here we are. This is a Pentel click eraser, and it's quite handy because it has a long piece of eraser and it'll do sort of finer erasings than this. And so it's quite useful if you need to get into a small space like that to rub it out. It's quite good, isn't it? And I think now I need something else. I need a brush. And I use an old, well, it's not actually old because it's never been used for shaving, but it's a shaving brush. And it's very useful for brushing your bits and pieces off out of the way like that. And I'm just thinking, I think I want to make the wing a little bit longer. So we'll give him an extension up here. Maybe not quite that far. And come down a little bit like that. That's better. Okay, and then we'll do a background, and then I'll paint some very faint flowers underneath him down here. Right, so maybe I'll do the background first. That's probably a good idea, and then it can dry. And then by the time I've painted the bird, then I'll be able to do the flowers in the background. So that makes sense. So we'll mix up an apricot colour. And these paints that I've got here, the Meaden ones, this is violet. What do they call it? It's the violet called violet. Yes, it's violet. This is rose, and the yellow is lemon yellow. And if I mix, I don't know why I mentioned that was violet, and this is cobalt blue, and that's sap green. So now you know what all the colours are. So to get a apricot colour, what works quite well is the rose. Just make sure you can see that there, mixed with a little bit of lemon yellow. And you're going to adjust that so it's what you want. I mean, obviously, it's an apricot colour. It's a little bit more yellow than that perhaps, but it doesn't matter, I mean, whatever. So I don't mix all my paints up in advance, usually, because I tend to change my mind about what I'm doing, and I also want to add and take away from what goes on the paper, so I don't do it all in advance like some people do. There's a kind of mixed feelings about whether or not you should mix all your paints up in advance. Some people do and some people don't. So what I'm doing now is wetting around the bird, because you can rely on the paint not going beyond the boundary of wetness. Okay, so you can put water right up to the edges of your drawing, and when you come in with your slightly more intense, I've used slightly tinted water here so that you can see where I'm going, because if I just used plain clean water, you wouldn't be able to see where I'd been, and nor would I. So do it like that, very pale, and then I'll drop in some more colour afterwards. And I've done it deliberately to the top left kind of thing. I'm just going to put in some stylised flowers at the end, rather than doing what I've done in the past is try to do some fairly realistic sort of flowers, but that's a bit challenging if you're a beginner, and also takes much more time, and also then the flowers compete with the bird. So since this is all about the bird of joy and lightness, resilience and endurance, because as I mentioned in my last video, we did have a pretty unpleasant sort of week last week, and so now I'm just popping in a bit of slightly darker pinky apricot. And for a while I didn't even really want to paint, and I can't say that I'm absolutely back into the groove yet, but isn't it funny when we're getting old, some of us, and you think of all the ways you used to say things, the language you used to use, in the groove. Wasn't that really popular in the 50s and 60s? And I find myself going back to some of those. But I also say rock on and stuff like that. I don't know where that comes from. But yeah, that's just funny. The way people choose to bend the language. We were looking something up. Oh, I don't know. I was following a chap who teaches French on the internet, on YouTube, and he was talking about a slang French that they've invented, and in Paris especially, or in anywhere where youngsters congregate, they have this thing called verlan, which means backwards, and they have words which they turn around. They put the back end of the word at the front end, and confuse the heck out of everybody that's anywhere near them, of course, because you can't understand that when they say meuf, they mean femme, which means woman. It's a way of keeping yourself secret, isn't it? Secret squirrel. A bit like the old London Cockney rhyming slang. I'm just going up the apples. And that was, apples meant stairs because it was apples and pears, and that rhymed with stairs. So you were going up the apples. I mean, it's a bit mysterious, isn't it? I'm sure you have that kind of thing in America as well, and in all countries. So yes, I'm just building up the depth in some places kind of thing. So I'm just going to just drop in a little bit here and leave it to move around a bit. You have to be a little bit brave, and because I want the background to the flowers to be a little bit stronger. So there we are. And it will sort of spread out and smooth out a little bit as it's drying. So that's what I'm going to have to do now. If I started to paint the bird now, I could do, but I would have to make sure that I kept the paint away on the bird, away from the background, because if it bled out into the background, then you'd have a completely different effect altogether. So I think probably what I'm going to do is leave that to dry. I'll go and have lunch and I'll come back and finish it. I think that's probably the best thing to do. because the next step won't really take very long, I hope. Okay, so this is nice and dry now, and I think it's probably, at this point, a good idea to try to erase most of the pencil lines, because once those lines are gone, we'll still be able to see. I won't necessarily rub them out completely, might leave a little bit of a trace, but the thing is, if you paint over them, as I have done by accident here, in general, you won't be able to rub them out again afterwards because the paint covers over the graphite, and you can't actually get to it to erase it. So it's best to get rid of most of them. It doesn't matter if a few still remain. In fact, some people deliberately leave all their pencil lines, but somebody pointed out a little while ago that there are competitions and groups in America, I don't know if they exist in England, who consider the slightest trace of pencil remaining on your work to be enough to disallow you to enter into their competitions, because it, according to them, it makes it into mixed media and therefore it's not pure watercolor. I don't know if that's a general thing in America or whether it's just some groups. I rather think it might be just some groups. But anyway, we're not worried about that kind of thing, are we? My days of exhibiting in shows in the hope of becoming a famous oil painter one day are long gone. Long gone. But that's okay. So I'm just doing this reasonably carefully and kind of showing you how I work on a painting from beginning to end. We've done a lot of recently very quick and easy, and that's not to say that this is a difficult painting, I must say. But we have done a lot of really quick and kind of slapdash kind of paintings recently. And this one, I just thought I would show you how I would draw, and then, you know, the whole thing really. So I'm just trying to basically paint some petals, being lazy and not wanting to bother to draw them out. I'm drawing them with my brush, and we leave them loose. And then we're going to want some darker and slightly thicker orange. So we'll go with our rose pink and our lemon yellow, but we won't use quite so much water. And we'll add a touch of violet, I think, to make it more brownish. Because I don't want to get a brown out. I've got browns in my set, but I'm not going to bother to get brown out just for the sake of doing the center of that flower, which is perfectly reasonable to do it like this. And just do some little dots around the outside edge like that, perhaps, and let that run. And then I might do a third layer of just slightly darker in the middle, depends how light or dark it dries. And then I'm going to water that down a little bit, add a little bit more pink, and we'll do a pink flower over here. For this, I'm using a size 12 Pro, no, not Pro anything, Princeton Aqua Elite. And we'll put a little bit of, oh, where's my thingy whatnot that I dry my brush off on. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow in the center of that. That will blur out nicely. Maybe we'll put a bit of yellow in the middle of this one too. I'm just playing. And then I'm going to take some pink again, but very pale. Like that. Can you see that? Stands up to check. Yes, I should get myself a proper camera, and then I could have a screen pointing down at me, so I didn't have to get up and look to see what I'm actually doing. I haven't got around to doing that yet. Actually, my phone does a very good job. I think it's really nice, this idea of painting pale flowers on top of a pale background. It's layering, and where you've got the two colours together, they become more intense, you know. I'm going to put down here some small little ones. And I'll join them up afterwards with a pale green stem. And we're going to put some leaves down here, but we will put some more small flowers here. And put one up here. Okay, so I'll switch back down to a slightly smaller brush and go to the greens. Don't want it too green, I want it more bluish green, and make sure it's plenty light enough. So just adding water to make it lighter. And I'm going to paint in some stems in pale green and some leaves. This is cold press paper, by the way, not hot press. The last painting I did of the little bird, I did it on hot press, but this one is cold, and it has a slightly more rough texture. But it's very accepting to the paint. It's probably better for beginners than hot press. But if you are planning to become a botanical painter, you probably will be quite happy to discover hot press, because it does have a very detail-oriented texture. It loves to let the details show. Okay, so I think this one's too dark, and I'm going to take a piece of tissue paper. I always have a clean tissue in my hand, and I'm just going to hope that I can lift some of that out, because I think it's too dark. So I'll just wet it. And this paper is all about the paper, really. Meaden paper tends to let go like that. So that's okay. Some paper allows the pigment from your paint to sink in completely, and it won't let it go. But the Meaden seems to be, it's to do with the way that it's sized. Sizing is the sort of glue that they put onto the paper to make the paint behave correctly. I'm just softening up these bits that I've put here and pulling it out into the flower itself to give it some depth. So we're doing basically a little bit of ad hoc layering there. We might come back to that later. And again, I feel that that's probably more than dark enough, so we'll just take a little bit of that out too. Carrying on up here with our green. Come down the middle of this one and take that down behind a little bit. And up here we have more flowers. I think I might put that one here. And I'm saving the bird to last, as you can see, and we might take a little bit more of our bluey green colour and just come back to the ones that we did first and very carefully put a few veins in. It's completely optional. You could use a brush pen to do that too if you wanted to make it a little bit easier, but I'm not going to do it on all of them. Just a few. I think we probably need another leaf here. And let's put some orange colour in the middle of this one and this one, keeping it all very, very pale, aren't we? Because it's just the background. I thought I'd do the background first. Did I already say that? My memory's getting terrible these days. Okay, so is this dry? We'll soon find out. We can put in a second layer of very pale colour on top of these petals. And this is a good introduction to layering your paints, or veiling, as we used to say in Germany. Just gives it more depth. This one is the main flower. You should always have one star of the show, so to speak, that sits in the middle, more or less, being the most important part. So we just do a very small and bright centre to that. I'm not going to make that very big. Okay, so the next thing is the softening the edges of that. The hummingbird itself, and he has a nice pink throat, and his beak is grey, and he's got a green and turquoise back going down to blue, and then his wing is blue here and going to be paler blue on the edges there. And the first thing I'm going to do is dry these flowers because I don't want to touch anything and get paint on my hand. Okay, so that's dry, and I'm going to just slightly reposition the eye. Sometimes where you put it at the beginning turns out not to be quite right. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put it, the beak is kind of on this curve and his eye sits just above there, so I think it should be here. I've just moved it a tiny bit to the right. Some people like to put the eye in at this point with the paint because that kind of gives the bird its character from the get-go sort of thing. And I could do that. But I think I won't. I think I'll start with the red throat. My eyes are just, honestly, I'm falling to pieces. Can't hear, can't see, can't remember. I think it's probably because I've been under such a lot of stress the last week or so with what happened, and I told you about that before. And we've had a lot of other little things cropping up too. But I've gone back on my blood pressure pills because I think that was what was causing me a lot of trouble. So I'm on the lisinopril now. I'm hoping I don't get the sorts of side effects that I had when I tried amlodipine, which didn't work for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is his throat is kind of rosy, orangey, pinky colour, which is perfectly rendered by these colours I've got here. So I'm just going to paint that in a little bit more orange. Although I'm painting this with a lot more care than I often do, this is another thing that Denise said to me, or said, she kind of hinted. She kind of said, oh, I wish you would paint the way you did when you first started sometimes. And so I thought, well, let's see if I still can. Consequently, that's what we're doing today, because if there's one thing I like, it's a challenge. Okay, so we've put a little bit of yellow in here. And then we're going to go to green here and let that blend with the yellow. And we'll make that green and yellow all the way up here. Trying to be relatively careful about this. And then we need blue under the wing and down the back. We'll come back to that. And we can always do a second layer of colour over the top. We need a little bit more green. And we're going to do the top of the head. Just go around the eye. And put a little bit more blue in here. And then we're going to need some pale blue with a tiny touch of violet. That wants to be nice and pale, and that's going to come in here. And we just bring that down, remembering that the wing feathers come this way first and gradually turn in that direction like that. Okay, so that's the first step there. Then we've got a kind of violet. Let's put a violet tail feather down here. We go back to the blue. And a bit more blue violet. Okay, and now we need some grey, and to make grey we have various options. We need a little bit of everything really, so I'll just take a bit of green, a little bit of blue, a bit of purple, and we don't want a really dead, yeah, that's quite good. That'll be fine for the beak. I'll just come out like that. And then I'm going to do the top bit just by making it wet. And when that's dry, we'll just put in a little bit of the markings there. So then we need the eye, and that needs to be black. And let me think, what shall we do? Shall we do it with paint? I can find some black paint somewhere, I'm sure. Just dry off the brush a little bit. Yes, I think that'll do. So we're going to do a circle. And then we'll fill it all in except for the top a little bit. So we leave that like that. And then we could put in some little blue feet, because I think they often have their little feet sitting, don't they? Visible, I mean. We could put a little bit of grey here, come out into the beak. A little bit of grey underneath. And now I think, is this dry? I have to put the hairdryer on it again. Okay, so let's go back to green with a dab of blue in it, and we'll just emphasize the colour on the back of his head a little bit. just soften that off. So it sort of smooths in, and he needs a bit more dark green here. It's always a good idea to leave a little bit of white around the outside of the eye. And then we want blue, a little bit more violety blue for the back of the body here. Coming down into the tail feathers. And we'll go to the green again and put more green in here. And a very pale blue coming into under the tummy. And I don't want to lose that glow of the yellow. The yellow is very important there to make the whole thing glow. And I'm going to do some more. This is a little bit tricky, this. So I'm going to bring some feathers in here, kind of side by side. Lift out some of the paint near the top. A bit more pink in it, perhaps. We don't want it to be... Oh, I'm getting very warm. I have to take my jacket off, just realised. It's getting hotter in here. I'm going to wait for that to dry again, and then I'll just put a little bit more shadow there. Meanwhile, I'll go back to the tail feathers. It's best not to play with it. Okay, so I want to just tidy up these wings, these tail feathers here a bit. So I'm going to use a smaller brush, which I don't usually use. But this is a tiny detail brush. I think this one also came in a set from Meaden, I think. But you can get them really cheap online. If you do order anything online, do go to Amazon from one of our links. Anyone will do. You don't have to buy that thing. But it really helps us, because when you go to Amazon, no matter what you order after you've gone on one of our links for 24 hours, I think it is, anything that you order, we get a tiny commission on, which is really helpful. We've had people buying babies' nappies and gold rings, bracelets, all sorts of things. And it's all crystal mill, so to speak. It really helps. Okay, so just put a little bit more of this blue in here for the shadow, the back of his wing. And perhaps we'll bring that down a little bit here too. And I think I'm going to stop there. I made a little slight error there where it's gone kind of, I don't know if I can cover that up, but if I do try to do it, probably make it worse, but I'll straighten it out at least. Anyway, so there we are. And I hope that this little painting of a hummingbird will, as it says, you know, it's a reminder to stay light, seek sweetness, and keep going. That's the message I was given this morning. And I think it's very important that we remember that. And I hope you enjoyed that. As I said, the sketch will be on our website for you if you want to have a go at doing something similar. You can spend a lot more time on the flowers than I did. I did them super quick. But yeah, so there we are. Give us a like and subscribe if you feel that way inclined. Much appreciate that. And I send you all love, light, sweetness, and hope that you can keep going, which is what we all seek to do, isn't it? So I'll see you on Saturday, and take care, look after yourselves, have fun. Bye for now, everybody, and bye from all of the animals, all of whom are fat, overfed, and fighting fit. So nothing to worry about on that front. And even our egg-bound chicken survived. Don't forget to leave a comment, by the way, below if you have got time, because that always is very interesting and helpful to read and does mean that we keep going. By the way, I suppose I could mention at this point that we are going to have a little giveaway, a little mini giveaway and a bigger giveaway in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. And with that, I'll let you go. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.